Welcome to U.S. Immigration TV. Now, for anyone who has ever been out of status, one of their biggest fears is an immigration raid at their workplace. Now, we've all seen news reports of immigration raids at, for example, car washes, restaurants, factories, processing plants, etc., where workers are rounded up, and if it's found that they are out of status, they're handcuffed and taken away in vans for deportation or removal. In fact, when I've had consultations with people, I'm constantly being asked, what are the chances of ICE coming to my workplace and taking me into custody and marching me in front of all my coworkers in handcuffs? Well, there's now good news, which should bring a sigh of relief to these hardworking individuals. On October 12, 2021, Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, issued a memo to ICE, USCIS, and CBP, which radically changes the focus of DHS's worksite enforcement policies and priorities. From now on, DHS will focus its worksite enforcement efforts on, and I quote, unscrupulous employers who exploit the vulnerability of undocumented workers rather than apprehending or catching workers who are out of status. Now, Secretary Mayorkas points out that these employers engage in illegal acts ranging from payment of substandard wages to imposing unsafe working conditions, as well as facilitating human trafficking and child exploitation. And by paying substandard wages, or half of what maybe is the prevailing wage, these unscrupulous employers not only harm the undocumented worker, but also create an unfair labor market and create a disadvantage to their business competitors who follow the law. After all, if somebody else is paying the actual wage and an unscrupulous employer is paying half of that, obviously they may be charging less and harming their competitors. Now, by changing the focus of worksite enforcement, by going after the unscrupulous employers rather than the undocumented immigrants, DHS hopes to enforce wage protections, workplace safety, labor rights, and other laws and standards. According to the memo, DHS recognizes that many exploited workers are afraid to come forward and report the abuses they are suffering out of fear their employer might fire them, report them to DHS, or take other action against them. Therefore, rather than apprehending or catching these victims of exploitation, DHS should consider providing a number of protections and benefits to them, such as deferred action, continued presence, parole, and other available relief for non-citizen victims of or who are witnesses to abusive and exploitative labor practices. In fact, there are also several temporary visas that are available for victims of crime, trafficking, or abuse, or for those who will be witnesses at a trial. For example, like the S and the T and the U visas. According to the memo, DHS should also consider ways to ensure that non-citizen victims and witnesses generally are not placed in immigration proceedings during the pendency of investigations or prosecution. DHS should also, quote, consider ways to ensure that non-citizen victims and witnesses generally are not placed in immigration proceedings during the pendency of an investigation or prosecution of their unscrupulous employers. In other words, if they're going to be testifying, they should not be put in removal proceedings. The memo also instructs ICE to, and I quote, cease mass worksite operations or immigration raids. Secretary Mayorkas recognizes that, and I quote, the deployment of mass worksite operations that are sometimes resulting in the simultaneous arrest of hundreds of workers was not focused on the most pernicious aspects of our country's unauthorized employment challenge, which is exploitative employers. Accordingly, DHS will, and I quote, no longer conduct mass worksite operations and instead refocus our workplace enforcement efforts to better accomplish the goals outlined above, meaning going after the unscrupulous employers who exploit the undocumented workers. But what's really needed is for Congress to act and to finally provide a way by which these hardworking, undocumented immigrants can finally have a way to legalize their status once and for all, rather than living in the shadows and in uncertainty. We should urge Congress to finally act by passing laws on immigration reform rather than bickering and fighting among themselves while people suffer from their inaction. I hope you found this video informative, and I hope that it could possibly help you in your immigration situation. I will continue posting breaking news and other items of interest in connection with immigration matters. So make sure that you like, share, and most importantly, press that subscribe button. I'm Michael Gurfinkel, and thanks for watching U.S. Immigration TV.